Miss Wrigley Building. The Wrigley Building is so named for its original occupants, the Wrigley Candy Company. Yes, that's correct, the same Wrigley as Wrigley Chewing Gum and Wrigley Field. This building, completed in 1924, is covered in glazed terracotta tiles. These tiles are not only flame retardant, but they are able to be cleaned, which was pretty important at the time, because air pollution would turn these glowing white buildings black with soot. So, once a year, even today, once a year, each of these 250,000 very delicate terracotta tiles are hand washed. Because you gotta hand wash your delicates. And yeah, that's about the caliber of joke you can expect for the next 75 minutes. Oh, 60 minutes. We are on an hour tour, you guys. The season is changing, and so are we. Now, on the other side of this low-hanging double-decker bridge is the second tallest building in our skyline. It is, of course, the Trump International Hotel and Tower, completed in 2009, designed by a Chicagoan, a man called Adrian Smith. This building is a really great example of a very popular design style called contextualism. So contextualism seeks to flatter its context. As an example, we see it has 3 distinct patio setbacks. Each one of these setbacks is at a very specific height. The first one is the same height as the building's neighbor, the Wrigley Building. The second setback in the middle, that one is the same height as Mather Tower, which is the white rocket ship-shaped building, the tallest of these 4 that are all squished together immediately across the river. And the third and tallest setback, that one is the same height as its neighbor on the other side, this black box tower just peeking out around the corner called the AMA Plaza. So it is contextualizing, it's flattering its surroundings, contextualism. Now we're moving from contextualism to black box modernism next door with the AMA Plaza, completed by Mies van der Rohe. Mies van der Rohe was a very influential architect. He is considered the father of modernism, more specifically black box modernism. Big black box modernism, name checks out. But Mies van der Rohe, he really championed the idea of design as purely purpose-driven, important because of its functionality, and beautiful because of the precision it takes to achieve that. And we are going to dive into the history of the black box in Chicago, but we're going to do that little history lesson later. Because right now, we gotta look at some wacky corncob things next door. These 2 towers on our right are part of a complex called Marina City. Completed in 1967 by Bertrand Goldberg, an architect and a social scientist. He wanted Marina City to be a city within a city, a place where residents could live, work, be entertained, all within one complex. And his goal was to attract more residents to the city center, because at the time, this river stunk really bad. Nobody wanted to live downtown, and Goldberg wanted to change that. Speaking of the river, if you look over to your left, you will see a barge parked in it. That is very common for these maintenance projects, like the work on the State Street Bridge. Giant hole, they're going to fill up that hole, we're going to be able to use it soon. Now over here, back to the right, back to Marina City, it's architect Bertrand Goldberg. He is quoted to say, "There are no right angles in nature, and you will find no right angles in my building," which is a very sassy quotation from Bertrand Goldberg. And it definitely looks true. All of these apartment units are shaped like flower petals, which is adorable. And within this complex, we have a hotel, a theater, shopping, restaurants, daycare center, bowling alley, gym, ice skating rink, movie theater, plenty of valet parking, and of course, a marina underneath. So only the essentials for your average Chicagoan. Now, some of those are luxury amenities. Some of them have become commonplace, like parking or a gym. And if you really enjoy having those things in your apartment building, you might need to thank Marina City. Marina City did it first. Now, up ahead on the left, oh my goodness, but still in the river, I am seeing this for the first time as well. We got another barge, just proving how common this stuff is to do our construction staging on barges in the middle of the Chicago River. Is this guy moving? I don't think so. But it's very cool to look at. Big construction crane. I believe that this was the crane that was over at the corner of Wolf Point last week. Very cool to see up close and personal. Now, if you look past the crane to the sidewalks along the river, this is our beloved River Walk. The River Walk goes up and down pretty much the entire left side of the main branch of the Chicago River. It was designed with the intention of turning our previously pretty gnarly, nasty waterfront into active public space. And it did that. There's even public over there right now. I see 1, 2, 3 public. Now, this thing was thought up all the way back in 1909. It was part of something very cool called the 1909 Burnham Plan of Chicago. Now, this plan included a lot of really cool stuff, but unfortunately for the Riverwalk, the water of this river, it only started to get marginally less gross with the Clean Water Act of 1972. And construction on the Riverwalk, it did not even begin until 2003. So it took us like 100 years to get our act together and to start this project, but we did finally finish it in 2016, and it is well loved by Chicagoans, visitors. People jog on it every single morning. We love the Riverwalk. Now up ahead on the right, we are approaching an absolutely massive limestone structure. This behemoth up ahead, this is the Merchandise Mart. The Merch Mart was completed in 1930 to be the wholesale warehouse and trade showroom for the Marshall Field department store. May it rest in peace. With 4.2 million square feet of floor space, this was the largest building on the planet at the time of its construction. At different points throughout history, this thing had its own zip code and its own fire station. Still has its very own train station just due to the sheer number of people moving to this building on a daily basis. Now this is also a really fantastic example of the Art Deco design style, and Art Deco, in a nutshell, is really all about vertical racing stripes. They lead the eye up, they create vertical movement, and this is a design style from the 1920s, so it is a time of movement, of growth, of luxury. That is all reflected here in the Mart. This building also features these super weird green Pez dispenser looking things facing the building in front here. They do not dispense candy. It's kind of a bummer. These are tributes to the merchant princes, so the heads of men like Marshall Field, Montgomery Ward, Woolworth. I think we should turn them into real Pez dispensers because I think it would be very funny to get Fringo mints out of Marshall Field's mouth. I think that would be hilarious. All right, we are heading into my favorite area of the Chicago River. Welcome, all of you. Welcome to Wolf Point. And we are, see, I'm proven wrong. That crane that we saw earlier is still over there. Now, Wolf Point is where the 3 branches of our beloved Chicago River converge. So we have been on the main branch so far. We're gonna will not turn up the north branch, and then we'll go down the south branch over here on the left. These 3 branches meet right here at Wolf Point. Now, a lot of these shiny contemporary towers that you're seeing around you are pretty recent, including this one up ahead, slightly to our left. This impossible-looking building that gets smaller at the bottom. This is my favorite building in all of Chicago. I'm kind of obsessed with it. It is 150 North Riverside, affectionately known as the Tuning Fork. It was completed in 2017 by a firm called Getch Partners. Before they showed up, nobody wanted to use this piece of land because it's actually awful. You have active rail lines going along the entire back half of this plot, and there is a city-mandated 30-foot setback from the water for all new construction along the Chicago River. That leaves us a buildable area 39 feet wide. It's tiny. So they installed a core-supported building. It works kind of like a popsicle. The weight of these floors sort of hangs off of that core structure. That weight is then evenly distributed onto either side of Y-shaped trusses here at the bottom, and that force is transferred down. Uses a pretty cool strategy to keep from falling over. There are 12 enormous tanks of water up at the top of this building that help to absorb the wind force, the drift that acts on this building. This is the only selfie optimized building on this tour. You can check out the reflection of our boat in its weird shape. Another reason this is my favorite building. This is my favorite feature, actually. I like to wave at myself when we go by. It's very easy to find because I'm just like a traffic cone. Now this, my favorite building here, is also a really good example of a new trend that we are seeing more of here in Chicago, exposed engineering, where the buildings kind of show you how they work. See the Y-shaped trusses necessary for 150 North Riverside, they inform the shape we see. And then we have another really convenient and fantastic example of that exposed engineering trend. It is up ahead on our left. It is this massive blue tower, the Bank of America building. See, this thing also had to deal with that city-mandated 30-foot setback, but they handled it differently. They carved that part out and left the building supports exposed next to the water. And these giant metal chicken feet are also very clearly design elements. They're flashy, they're showy, they're lit up at night. And that actually makes perfect sense because the same firm that built this builds our selfie opportunity back there. That's right, it's Getch Partners again. These guys love to show off. They also love to use the latest technology. Great news for the Bank of America building. This thing was completed at the very end of 2020. It therefore features some relevant technology for the time, like a very handy hands-free elevator that you call to your floor with a smartphone. The future is now. The past is also now, because on either side of the boat we have beautiful examples of the Art Deco design style. But let's focus over to the right for now, hit the other side on the way back. Along the right side of the river, we see the evolution of American architecture through time. 2 Riverside Plaza, this beauty on our right, was completed in 1929. It is definitely Art Deco, and this is a style reflective of the optimism of the time, when clearly nothing was about to go wrong. Everyone was going to be rich and happy forever, right? Now, later that same year, the stock market crashed, plunging us into the Great Depression. Shortly after that, we entered into our Second World War, effectively halting the progression of American architecture for about 30 years. By the time we were ready to return, it was an entirely new generation leading the way. And these are the folks that grew up during the Great Depression. So they are practical, frugal, efficient, and those values are reflected in the design style of Gateway Center 1 and Gateway Center 2. They are both that black box modernism style. It's that style pioneered by our friend from before, Mies van der Rohe. Mies van der Rohe said of this style, he said, "I don't want to be interesting, I want to be good." The way he saw it, buildings are good when they do what they set out to do as structures, not really anything else, not because they're trying to look like anything or be anything special to anyone. So for this new generation of architects, ornamentation, decoration, that stuff is just not the point. These guys want the beauty and the stability of utility. So that's what we got. Whole lot of these simple black boxes here in Chicago, over 40 of them. We put a lot of these things up in a very short period of time, but eventually we did start to tiptoe outside of our little black box comfort zone, started putting up white boxes instead, like Gateway Center 3. Now officially, the style of building is called the International Style. That is because the popularity of this type of building in the 1970s meant you could find one pretty much anywhere. And it's brighter looking, it definitely conveys a brighter outlook, but in my personal opinion, it's too similar to the black box. We gotta go further. And we're gonna do that, because on this time traveling tour, we are in fact heading into the 80s. The 80s is gonna give us famously wacky postmodernism, and as an offshoot of that, we are also going to get contextualism, which we have more of up ahead on our right. It is this curving green building, Gateway Center 4. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. The curve of this building follows the curve of the river, and there is a rippled effect on these windows that is meant to recall the river's movement as well as its color. So it is contextualizing its natural environment. This building also really irritates me. I can ruin your morning if I want to. You want me to? All right. On this side wall, the closest to us here, there are 2 air vents that don't line up with each other, even though that wall is covered in straight lines. This bugs me, and I have a microphone. So now it gets to bug you too? Happy Thursday! But back to the tour. If you have been disoriented by our trip through time, I have good news. You will be able to easily reorient yourself with this giant map. That red piece sticking out up there, that marks you are here. That is a giant you are here map. And the funniest thing is, we never used to talk about this building on the tours. The new owner of the building found out it was getting skipped, decided to spend $800,000 to quite literally put themselves on the map. And it worked, because you just heard about it. So, mission accomplished. Now, up ahead on our right, we have another humongous building. If it looks familiar, you might be a Batman fan because this was Gotham City Bank in the Dark Knight. Yeah, it's not a bank though. It is a post office, or it was the largest post office in the world at the time of its construction in 1932. And you know what? We needed all that space because Chicago at that time was the mail order catalog capital of the world. A little company you may have heard of called Sears. Only comparison to Sears today is Amazon. It was massive. It sold everything ordered out of a catalog, and everything arrived in the mail. But the Postal Service moved out of the old main post office in 1997. Buildings started to fall apart. But don't worry, this thing has been fully renovated at the absolutely mind-bending cost of $900 million. It is now full of offices, event spaces, and this thing has a 3.5-acre rooftop park that is straight up larger than many of the earthbound parks in the rest of the city. It's bananas. We are going to head down the South Branch. We're going to head down, turn around at a truly amazing photo opportunity, and then we're going to come back. But as we travel down, you guys are going to get some historical story time. But first, a little bit about your storyteller. Hi. Hello. My name is Sadie. I grew up in a log cabin in the middle of rural Michigan. And I know how that can sound to some of you, but you don't have to worry about me, okay? My parents are super normal, I swear. They're actually both from Chicago. They just wanted to build their own unique home, and they were not able to do that here in Illinois because of very restrictive building codes. Turns out, Chicago, it is not fond of log cabins. It's generally not fond of primarily flammable wooden structures. It's for a pretty good reason. Chicago's got a terrible history with fire. The Great Chicago Fire, to be precise. And that fire started a few blocks south of where we are right now. That spot where the fire started is now home to the Chicago Fire Academy. Because nothing can destroy our sense of irony. But this event, this fire, it is the reason we are an architectural superzone. So let's go back in time to the night of October 8th, 1871. See, much of the city infrastructure up until that night was made of wood, down to the streets and sidewalks, and it was a rain-starved time bomb. It hadn't rained since July 4th of that year, and autumn was approaching, so a lot of households were stocking up on supplies to keep warm in the winter. One household, the O'Learys, kept their supply of coal in their barn. In the middle of the night, a fire broke out in the barn, and strong southwest winds blew that inferno right toward the downtown area, and people thought that they would be safe across the river. Unfortunately, at that point, this river was so polluted that there was a thick layer of oil sitting on top of the water. The river ignited, and the inferno ran unchecked through the city, eventually destroying 17,000 structures and burning 3.5 square miles to the ground. It left 300 people dead and 100,000 people homeless. The first iteration of our city was gone. So we built the second one. The Second City. That is where that nickname, the Second City, actually comes from. It is our rise from the ashes of our former selves. And with this destruction also came opportunity to rebuild thoughtfully. So out of the ashes, Chicago got the world's first skyscraper, a 10-story structure with an inner steel frame. Total game changer for all of us. Because instead of continuing to build all of our cities out, we all start building up. So let's flash forward about 22 years. We have fully bounced back from the fire. We're feeling good. So we host the 1893 World's Fair. The lead architect of that fair was a man called Daniel Burnham, designed a sprawling fair campus on the south side in Jackson Park. And over the 6-month run of the World's Fair, 27 million people from all over the world came here to Chicago, where they were introduced for the first time to a lot of our favorite stuff, like the zipper, peanut butter, the brownie, my personal favorite, the squished penny machine, introduced in 1893, still as relevant as ever. Now, with the success of the World's Fair, Daniel Burnham, that lead architect, he then went on to publish the 1909 Burnham Plan of Chicago. That comprehensive plan to beautify, optimize our city, it included Navy Pier, the Riverwalk, and the majority of our shoreline reserved for use as public parks. This plan, it eventually inspired something called the City Beautiful movement. And this is the philosophy that beautiful, accessible, functional cities have a dignifying effect on their residents. It is the reason Chicago has over 600 parks. The idea being there should be a park within walking distance of every person's home. It's the reason we have boulevards, fountains, public spaces, public art. I mean, this is stuff we can sometimes take for granted about our cities, but it makes Chicago a pretty great place to live. And we are turning this boat, so I invite you guys to stand up and check out the view of my beautiful city from back here. Feel free to get a photo of yourself, your friends, your fam, if that interests you. If it does not interest you, the bar is open. Feel free to visit Anna down there at the bar. Anna will hook you up with a beverage of your choice. Hang out with Anna. I'm going to put the mic down. When I come back, I will ask you guys to return to your seats and silence any side conversations. But until then, take photos. Have fun. I'll see you in a minute. So for the past 10 minutes, wow, that thing reminds me of those corn cobs from earlier. You would be correct, because this is River City. It is another city within a city concept from the architect Bertrand Goldberg, except this time his social experiment was way less successful. So River City was meant to be a bigger version of Marina City. This is just phase one of a 3-phase project. The rest of it just never happened. Apparently, River City didn't spark that same level of interest, so it sat alone back here on the South Branch for about 30 years. I think that's a shame. I love this thing. I think it's weird and cool. Also, underneath, as you can see, we have another marina. These marinas have bubblers underneath the water to prevent ice from forming. So that means these people can keep their boats with them all year round, which is a huge selling point. And I know of at least one person who just lives on their boat, doesn't have an apartment within River City. And they do this over the winter in Chicago. I didn't think you could do that here, but I guess you can. Now we're going to turn our attention immediately in front of us to this pinky, beigey, octagonal tower. We call her the Queen of Chicago because she wears a crown. This is 311 South Wacker, the building that taught us all a lesson about how birds are dumb. Because when this building debuted in 1990, that crown up at the top, it was lit with 1,800 very bright fluorescent light bulbs. When you have very bright lights arranged in a circle high up in the night sky, birds will mistake that for the moon, which is really bad actually. They got very lost. We felt awful. So now we dim our exterior lights for migratory seasons. The new problem is buildings that almost completely disappear into the sky, like the Beeble building over here on our left. Birds run into that stuff. We're working on a retroactive solution, but we haven't quite figured it out yet. Now over here on the right, there is a statue among the rooftops. That is Ceres, Roman goddess of agriculture, sitting on top of the Board of Trade building. That was the tallest building in Chicago for about 35 years. Relevant fact about the statue, she does not have a face. Because when they put her up there, they didn't think anybody would ever be that high in the air again to see it. I do think they would be delighted at how wrong they were. Back in front of us, behind our queen, we have the king. This tall, dark, and handsome tower with 2 white antennas is the #1 tallest building in all of Chicago, #1 tallest on our skyline. It is, of course, the iconic Willis Tower. But hang on, before you get mad at me, hang on. The Willis Insurance Company leased the naming rights to this building for 15 years, but many Chicagoans are stubborn, refuse to call it anything other than its original name, the Sears Tower. But this is a professional tour. I have to be professional, so I will be calling this building the Sears Tower. And when the Sears Tower debuted in 1974, it was the tallest building in the entire world. This thing rises up 1,451 feet. That is 442 meters, 110 stories in the air. It would remain the tallest building in the world for over 2 decades. Was eventually unseated in 1998 by the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur. I think they got it on a little bit of a technicality, but we'll get into that later. Today, the Sears Tower is the 25th tallest building in the world and the 3rd tallest here in the United States. It was designed by the architecture firm Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, but specifically two guys, Bruce Graham and Dr. Fazler Khan. Those two guys, there's a rumor that they got the idea for this structure from a pack of cigarettes. Which, you know, if that's true, it is very 70s of them. And also makes a lot of sense. This building is made up of tubes. We'll talk about it more on the other side of this bridge. Alright, check out the structure, guys. 9 tubes, 3 by 3, bundled together and ending at different points. This bundled tube design is how the building is able to be so tall. It is a very effective strategy to combat wind drift. This is such a good strategy. It is the same one used for the current world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. That thing is also made up of tubes. And as we talk about these record-holding buildings, I would like to reveal to you the very frustrating reality of how the Council on Tall Buildings determines height records. So the measurement of the height of the building, it starts at the threshold. The lowest open-air public entrance goes all the way up to the top. And the tallest building in the United States, in this country, that is, of course, One World Trade Freedom Tower in New York City. It rises up a very patriotic 1,776 feet, including spire. But here's where things get a little sticky. See, spires are considered an architectural element, part of the design of the building. Therefore, spires in general are all included into official heights. But the two antennas on top of Sears Tower don't count. They are considered purely utilitarian, not a design choice. Therefore, they are not included into the official height. So, despite the fact that if you had these two buildings standing side by side, the top floor of One World Trade would be looking up to the top floor of the Sears Tower. Despite that, One World Trade still gets to claim the title of tallest in the United States. But we're not bitter. We're not. We're just sure to mention it on every single architecture tour that comes through our city. And if you guys look up to the top of the Sears Tower, see if you can make out 5 clear boxes sticking out of the side way up there. That is Sky Deck the Ledge. Very popular attraction for thrill seekers, because it is essentially a big glass box that you step into to feel like you're floating over 1,000 feet in the air. If you would like a first-hand account of what that's like, you'll have to ask somebody else. And for those of you who want to, I don't know, enjoy the view without cardiac arrest, you can see everything from inside. You do not have to go out there unless you want to. However, 2 people have successfully climbed the Sears Tower. First guy to climb that thing, that was Dan Goodwin. He did it in the 80s. He used suction cups and he wore a homemade Spider-Man suit. We call him Spider Dan. Second guy did it in the 90s using no equipment whatsoever. He free soloed it all the way up to the top with his bare hands. We call him Out of His Mind. His name is Alain Robert. That's actually what he does. He climbs all of the world's tallest buildings because he says he's afraid of heights. Sure. Both men were arrested upon reaching the top. I therefore do not recommend that any of you go climb any skyscrapers while you're here in Chicago. Should you like to, I don't know, confront something deep down inside, purchase a ticket for Sky Deck the Ledge. You will get all of the fear, none of the jail time. Perfect system, works. Now over here, underneath these black boxes, we can see and we can hear some trains. These are the Amtrak and Metro trains using the rail lines leading to and from Union Station. And when I say the trains are underneath these black boxes, what I mean is the buildings are on top, because the railroad was here first. Great example of something we have called air rights. See, the railroad signed a contract with the city of Chicago way back in the 20s. It granted them ownership of the air above their tracks for as far as the eye can see. So that means if you want to build something above a railroad here in Chicago, you need to pay for the air your building occupies. Each of these buildings on our left above the railroad pay annual rent, up to $1.3 million per building. Welcome to Chicago. But we find ourselves back in our little Art Deco canyon. Let's talk about the other side. Over here on the right, the Civic Opera building, also from 1929. This one's pretty special. This is our building that is built to look like a chair, a throne. The middle is the seat, then it has two arms and a back. It is meant to signify the seat of art and culture in America. And this chair is purposefully facing away from New York City because we're petty. Now, the opera company that built this thing, they intended for the office towers, the arms and the back of the chair, to provide rental revenue to pay for the construction of this building after the fact. Unfortunately, they finished it 2 weeks after the stock market crashed. So it sat empty. Opera company went bankrupt. So we have been passing underneath many a Chicago-style bridge. A Chicago style is trunnion bascule style. What that means is it opens and operates like a seesaw with a pivot point and a counterweight. Most of our bridges, especially the ones we're seeing now, have two leaves, two seesaws that open in the center to allow tall ships to pass underneath. The separation of the two leaves is generally going to be between the two red lights that hang down. And over here on the right of the Randolph Street Bridge, we have a bridge house. It's where we keep the controls to lift the bridges. We call it a house because we used to make the bridge tenders sleep in there. So they were available to raise these bridges up at a moment's notice for the industrial tall ships that would often travel the Chicago River. Tall ship traffic is down this century, so most of the time when we open these things, it's for sailboats. We have a biannual migration of the sailboats here in Chicago. We call it the bridge run. So in the spring, we have to open these bridges up one by one so all of the sailboats can come out of storage and go out to the marinas on the lake. Then in the fall, we reverse it. And that process can take kind of a long time because we have 37 of these things. 37 movable drawbridges in the city of Chicago. For context, that's a lot. The most of any American city. Worldwide, we come second only to Amsterdam. Now we are heading back into my beloved little Wolf Point over here. As we head back into Wolf Point, if you look over to your left, you will see a bridge stuck in that upright position. That is a railroad bridge, the Carroll Avenue Bridge. Carroll Avenue Bridge is a landmark. We keep it in the upright position because we would not be able to travel underneath it if it were closed. Now over here on our right is my second favorite building here in Chicago. This curving green tower is the Nuveen Building. It was completed in 1983. It is more contextualism. The curve of the building follows the curve of the river here at Wolf Point. The different colors of the glass, those stripes, are supposed to be the colors of the water and the sky. But the most important thing for me, and the reason it is so high up in my favorites list, is because this is the workplace of Ferris Bueller's dad from the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Barely in the movie, on screen for like half a second, but it's enough for me. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this yet, but here in Chicago, we have a little bit of an inferiority complex about being the second best at stuff. We hate it. The name The Second City can sometimes get under our skin, especially because you guys all now know that that's not what that nickname means. We are not second to New York City. Stop saying that. So when we are the best, the brightest, the top, you're gonna hear about it. And in that spirit, I want to tell you how Chicago is home to the world's largest permanent public display of digital art. It's called Art on the Mart. We use projectors to display digital video art onto the 2.5-acre facade of the Merchandise Mart. It transforms the entire front of this building into a large-scale public art piece. Uses some pretty cool technology to do this. Digital laser mapping. So what they've done is they have mapped the entire front of this building so the projectors shine only onto the stone and not into any of these many windows. Doesn't bother anybody who's still inside. Doesn't reflect back. If you would like to see the show, it runs Thursday through Sunday at sunset. This is the best spot to see the show on this piece of Riverwalk right across from the Merchandise Mart between Franklin and Wells. Now we are getting an up-close and personal view of yet another double-decker bridge, the Wells Street Bridge. Trains in Chicago are called L trains, but that is not L as in LMNOP. It is L as in elevated, because our trains often run on these elevated tracks. L is elevated, that's the whole joke. Yeah. The Will Street Bridge is above us currently, but in front of us is the LaSalle Street Bridge. On the left side of the bridge is a red brick building with a clock tower. This is the Reed Murdoch building. It was completed in 1914, but the story doesn't start until 1930. The city needed to expand its infrastructure, and it needed to widen LaSalle Street. Unfortunately, the Reed Murdoch building was totally in the way, so they could either demolish the entire thing, or they could do something that really irritates people who like symmetry. This building is no longer symmetrical if you count the windows on either side of that clock tower. I'll save you the trouble. There are 6 windows on the right and only 5 on the left, because we sliced off a section of the building to make way for the expansion of LaSalle Street. And if you didn't notice until I pointed it out to you, you're welcome. That's a gift from me to you. Difficult to return, hard to forget. Once you know, you are welcome for that gift. But over here on the right side of the boat is another reflective tower. This one features white column motifs stretching all the way up to the top. Then with the reflective glass, I really think that it gives the effect of looking through columns to the sky beyond. This here on our right, this is 77 West Wacker. It was completed in 1992 by Spanish architect Ricardo Bofill. Puts it solidly in the postmodernist category. And as luck would have it, immediately next door to this tall beauty is 55 West Wacker, who sticks out like a sore thumb, both in stature and in style. But you know what? We still love him. He is a short king. It's a great example of brutalism. Now, brutalism comes from the French béton brut, meaning raw concrete. Raw untreated concrete is the main hallmark of the brutalist style in architecture. It occurs at the intersection of ethics and aesthetics. So where they use it, it's often to indicate moral superiority, moral high ground. But this next building sidesteps the moral question altogether. You will find it up ahead on the right, a green building with a golden top, the Carbide and Carbon building. It was completed during Prohibition. That's when alcohol was illegal in the United States, but here in Chicago, we barely cared about that. And the 2 architects of this building, they were fixated on something they wanted, but weren't supposed to have: a bottle of champagne. This building is built to look like a bottle of champagne as a protest to Prohibition. We have historical proof now. It really was just conjecture up until about last year. And they really committed to the bit, too. Deep green stone, that is for the glass, and then they used actual 24-karat gold leaf up at the top for the foil. And then, in a really fantastic twist, there is now a bar at the top of that building. It's called Chateau Carbide, and they'll serve you champagne. It's great. Circle completes. I think it's hilarious. But the shape of this building is very similar to the shape of Mather Tower in front of us and the Jewelers building on our immediate right. You'll find that Art Deco, Jazz Age buildings all kind of have that same sort of shape, boxy at the bottom and graduating back to get skinny at the top. The idea is to allow more sunlight to get to the lower floors and to get to the street. I will say, Mather Tower is a very weird example of this rule, because it was a rule. It was part of the zoning ordinance starting way back in 1923. The Mather Tower is a weird example because it started with a really small footprint. Still had to follow the rules though. So the top floor up there, it is only 9 feet wide. Next door is the London House Hotel. I like to mention it on the tour because it has the 2nd most popular rooftop bar in the entire country. We'd prefer if it were the 1st most popular rooftop bar in the entire country, but you know what, whatever. I do like to recommend the London House because from up there you get a great view of Tribune Tower. Tribune Tower, coming up on our left, is the result of a design contest hosted by the newspaper to design the world's most beautiful office building. This is the winning entry to the contest. was completed in 1925, and it is French Gothic revival in style. So up at the top, you've got elaborate Gothic carvings, flying buttresses, but then at the base of the building, you'll find fragments of over 150 historic structures embedded into the facade at ground level. Each piece is labeled as like a free public museum. Great Wall of China, Taj Mahal, Parthenon, Vatican, Comiskey Park, all of the most important places are included. In that same spot, still on our left, closer to the river, is a glass box with a flat top, the Apple Store. I do think the Apple Store is a very cool piece of engineering because that glass facade does support a lot of the weight of that roof. That is very cool. But when they decided to put an Apple Store right there, they knew that if they blocked the view to Tribune Tower, they would make a lot of people mad. So they gave us a transparent building. It does maintain our view, but it looks like an iPad. We gotta move on from the stuff that hurts us though, so moving on. Still on the left side of the river, we have a gorgeous Art Deco looking building. Lots of vertical movement, and up by the top, by the spire, a very recognizable rainbow peacock logo because this is NBC Tower. Was completed in 1989. It is therefore not Art Deco. It is a revival style called Eco Deco, which is very cute. Eco Deco uses modern materials to recreate the Art Deco style. All right, guys, we're gonna hop over the river because I need to talk to you about one of my favorite guys, Harry Weese. Harry Weese was obsessed with triangles. Truly, he used triangles all the time. Great example, up ahead on our right, Triangular Tower, Swiss Hotel. This is his most famous building in Chicago because people are convinced it's supposed to look like a Toblerone chocolate bar. That's fair. I personally think that Harry Weese got a little lazy and started repeating himself because he already built us a far less fancy version of this triangular hotel downtown that you are not allowed to leave, called the Metropolitan Correctional Center. Harry Weese loved triangles so much, he built us a triangular federal prison. Harry Weese was a weird guy. And now, on the other side of this bridge, we finally get to talk about one of the most interesting new additions to our skyline. Up ahead on our right, 3 towers that sort of undulate back and forth. And up at the top, check out those empty floors way up there. We're going to talk about those in just a moment, but you can see them way better from back here. This entire groovy structure, this is the stunning St. Regis. The St. Regis was completed in 2020. It is the 3rd tallest building in our skyline. It is also the tallest building in the world, completed by a woman-led architecture firm. That's Jeannie Gang and her firm Studio Gang. We do love Jeannie Gang here in Chicago. She is from the Chicagoland area and a certified genius. We like her, she's cool. And the St. Regis cuts a very cool shape in the sky, but this thing is not actually curved at all. Instead, each of these floors increase or decrease by 5 inches. Just 5 inches on every side. So it doesn't actually move in and out all that much. And visually, this thing is kind of an optical illusion. The colors of the glass get darker as the floors get more narrow and lighter as the floors get wider, giving this shape even more dimension. You may be wondering how does such a tall, thin structure keep from getting blown over in the wind? Well, we touched on it earlier, but all skyscrapers sway in the wind. They have to, or they'd snap in half. But they should only really sway a little bit. We call that drift. We have a lot of strategies we use to offset drift. We talked about one earlier. That is the tanks of water up at the top of the building. We talked about another, the bundled tubes help to offset wind drift. This building has those empty floors. Those are what's called blow-through floors. They do pretty much exactly what you think they do. They let the wind blow through the building instead of push against it. Now up ahead on our left is a curving black tower. People often say it looks like a fidget spinner, or in the case of one small child last summer, a flask. which was very weird for me. She was like 6 years old, I'm not wrong. Well, the Flask building. This is Lake Point Tower, completed in 1968. It's actually pretty controversial because it will forever be the only private building east of this road right in front of us, DuSable Lakeshore Drive. That is because the developers of Lake Point Tower exploited a loophole in city zoning laws in order to build this private building where there are only supposed to be public buildings related to the mouth of the river. Slipped through a loophole, and here we are. Now, the two architects, they were students of Mies van der Rohe. You can kind of see the influence there, but they fully ditched the box part of black box modernism in favor of these organic curves. Those curves are meant to maximize lake views and ensure that nobody has to look into the windows of any of their neighbors. Lake views only for Lake Point Tower. Lake Point Tower is also quite infamous for being a very popular spot for Chicago celebrities. Scottie Pippen, Sammy Sosa, Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn, Tom Cruise, even for a moment, lived in Lake Point Tower. However, Oprah never lived there. That one's a rumor. Oprah never lived in Lake Point Tower. She was just a really big fan of the French restaurant on the top floor called Cité. She basically went to Cité so often people kind of assumed she lived in the building, but she didn't. And unfortunately, no, you guys cannot go to Cité for dinner later this week to check it out because it closed down in 2020. And we're still sad about it. It's been 5 years and we're still bummed. Cité was great. We miss Cité. But good news, people have been up to tour the empty restaurant space up there. So we think that finally another restaurant is in the works. So fingers crossed that when they name that new restaurant, they call it the Second Cité. Yeah. I did that to you on purpose because I'm a monster. Alright, we're going to turn this boat around again to offer you guys a pretty fantastic view of our skyline from back here on the basin. And I gotta be honest, this is the shot. Get the selfie, get the group photo, prove to everybody you came here to Chicago and took our famous architecture tour. And guys, if you spot somebody trying to fit like 8 people into a selfie, do the neighborly thing. Take that photo for them. Trying to cultivate a good vibe on the boat out here. Help us out. This is also last call for the bathrooms on board this boat. We do not have any bathrooms available for you back at the dock. The only ones we have are on the boats. So if you need to use the facilities, I recommend doing so ASAP. We cannot have you moving about the vessel or in the bathrooms once we start to dock. All right, I will be back on the mic shortly. Until then, please enjoy the view. Feel free to keep taking those photos, guys. I just ask that you wrap it up by the time we make it under the bridge, so you got some time. Now, I am going to be a little bit of a salesperson here for a second. So basically, we are under no illusions that you have a lot of options to choose from for your architecture tour here in Chicago. The market is saturated, and we know that. So as a thank you for choosing us here at Shoreline, we do like to offer you a discount on some of our other stuff, namely our water taxis. Today is Thursday, but starting, I believe, tomorrow, we will give you a discount on our water taxi service. We have water taxis operating on the Chicago River. So if, for example, you wanted to go over to Sears Tower to experience Sky at the Ledge for yourself, we can take you there. So our water taxis run on the weekends, and your discount for that extends through tomorrow, so you may be able to snag a cheaper water taxi ticket for your time. We also have Skyline Lake Tours. That is a 30-minute tour up and down Lake Michigan, more architecture, more history. That departs off of Navy Pier, and you can take that tour for $6. Since you already bought this ticket. $6 is like the cheapest thing to do in Chicago, cheaper than a Chicago-style hot dog. I know, because I've checked recently. So I do want to let you know that you have those discounts available to you. You can get those discounts by talking to our sales folks, and I can point you to the sales office. It's up the stairs at the dock, turn left, and keep going, you'll see our sales office. Now we are passing underneath Lakeshore Drive, or has been recently renamed to be Jean-Baptiste Point du Sable Lakeshore Drive. Sobel was Chicago's first non-native settler. We name a lot of stuff after him because we love him to pieces. Now over here on our right, we have an active construction site. This is the future home of 400 North Lakeshore Drive. You can see that freight elevator moving, very fun. This is just the first of 2 identical towers that are going to occupy this spot. This is the first one, the North Tower. It is set to be complete at some point in 2027. Now we have talked a lot on the tour so far about the architecture we can find on either side of the Chicago River, but we have not yet talked about the river itself. We have done a lot of weird stuff to this river throughout Chicago's history. Back when DuSable first settled in Chicago, the mouth of the river was all the way up by Tribune Tower, so that means everything beyond that is man-made. The buildings on either side of this belt right now are built on landfill. That includes material from the bottom of Lake Michigan and a lot of debris from the Chicago fire. That is very cool that we were able to expand our lakeshore on a big pile of garbage. Still not the most bonkers thing we have done to this river. Chicago has the only river in the world that flows away from its mouth, backwards. It is not supposed to do that. We did that. We created an unnatural phenomenon, and it is all in the name of sewage. Because we used the river as a dump for anything and everything, and I guess didn't really notice that it was all flowing out into our source of fresh drinking water. We started caring, started to have some idea of public health right around the time we won the bid to host the World's Fair. Millions of people were going to come here to Chicago, and we did not want them leaving with a souvenir like cholera. It's a bad look. So we began construction on the Sanitary and Ship Canal. It uses the power of gravity to reverse the flow of the Chicago River. It connects the Illinois River to the Des Plaines River at a lower point, pulls the water away from the lake and into the Mississippi, which is great news for Chicago. Terrible news for St. Louis. Is anybody on the boat from St. Louis? Are you serious? You're from St. Louis? You just were in St. Louis. Okay. Well, they tried to sue us. Tried, case went all the way to the Supreme Court. Unfortunately for them, we won. So, sorry. Yeah, the water of the river is a lot cleaner than it used to be. We are not sending a whole bunch of trash over to St. Louis anymore. And we're actually quite proud of our progress. This river has gotten so much cleaner in the last few decades that we actually had a city-sanctioned human being swim in this river. If you or any of your friends live in Chicago, you know how big of a milestone that was. Now, on the other side of this bridge is our dock. Our time together is pretty rapidly coming to an end. Before we make it to the dock, folks, our captain warned of this before we took off, but I do now need every single person to find a seat and stay seated until the captain tells you it is time to stand up. Please do not use the bathroom. Please don't be on the stairs. It's actually pretty easy to fall when we dock the boat. This is a very hard steel deck. I do not recommend the experience of falling on it. Take it from me. Hurts a lot. 0 out of 10. Please stay seated. Also, please make sure your trash finds its way into our trash cans. Make sure you have all of your personal items with you. Phone, wallet, keys, child. Make sure you got that stuff with you. Kind of hard to get it back to you once you get off the boat. Your boarding photos should be ready for you up at the top of the stairs. Check them out. They make pretty cool souvenirs. And don't forget about that $6 lake tour guy. You guys, that discount again extends through tomorrow. $6 for that lake tour. And last thing, if you guys had a good time on the tour today, if you enjoyed the narration, you can feel free to let us know about that by leaving a review. Or if you are so inclined, I will be up at the top of the stairs as you guys go ashore. So if you have anything for me, that is where I'll be. Now, I really hope you guys had a good time on the tour this morning. I hope you were both entertained and delighted by the city of Chicago, by its vibrant displays of life, by its hidden histories, and by its hard-won lessons. We are the city of broad shoulders. We are the city of second chances. And we are really delighted that you guys decided to give us a chance this morning to dazzle you with our architecture and our history. And I hope we were able to do that. As you continue on in your journey, whether that be here in Chicago or beyond, please travel safely, and thank you so much for your time and attention this morning, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your day, and my sweet home, Chicago. Thank you.
Oh.